You might be on the clock in some of your rookie drafts wanting to trade out, wondering what to do. Maybe the second round, maybe the back end of the first round, maybe the early third round, or maybe you're wanting to move up with those second round picks, or you're wanting to buy more second round picks. Today, we're going to be looking at some players to buy, sell, hold, trade with those second round picks. Whatever you want to do, but we're looking at those values for rebuilding teams, contending teams, and overall strategy. But before we dig in, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're looking at dynasty trades every day. We're looking at the rookie drafts every day. We're doing player evaluations every day. It's right here on the channel for free. Click that button. Stop missing out. We're starting off late first, mid-second-esque value here when we're looking at players for contending teams. That way, if you want to sell that second round pick, that late first, you don't like what's on the board, you can do what you need to do to get the job done. And there's more players than this, but we're going to do a quick roundup here. Chuba Hubbard's one of my guys. Valued at RB19, similar in ADP. ADP, keep trade cut, calculators, roughly close to the same values on almost all of them. We covered that and broke that down in a few videos here. 16.5 points per game. Rico Dowdle's there right now. But he's a cheap running back that you can get right now if you want production, if you want touches. This team wants 2 running backs anyways. They've proven that. They said that multiple times in the media. Chuba Hubbard, though, is going to get work. He's going to get opportunity. He's going to give you the potential to get multiple RB1 weeks next year. You can catch him on the cheap. Depending on where you're at in that range, maybe you want to make that pick. Maybe you want to make that move. Maybe you don't like the rookies available. The running backs tiered off too much. You don't like the wide receiver class, tight ends. You can forget about it. Maybe you're good at that. Quarterbacks, you don't like it, of course. Maybe this is the route you may want to take. Maybe this. Or maybe it's this, Davante Adams. Because we're going to the Rams. They're going to be slinging the rock. And we can command targets. Last 3 years with different teams, 10.4 targets per game. On top of that, going to the Jets here, 17.2 points per game last year, and he was getting racked up with targets. But, you know, Aaron Rodgers, all that. But still, Davante Adams, last leg of his career, 32.3 years old right now. Cheap in value for contending teams. If the well's dried up for you in your draft, you want to know what to pivot to. Or if you want him gone and you want to move up in your draft, him plus some other picks might help you to move up. But that's a player to go after. Mike Evans, a steady Eddie veteran here. Last leg of his career, again, just for contending teams, 7.9 targets per game last year. That's rather solid. That's rather steady, and he's pretty steady with wide receiver 1 production. You can catch him a little bit cheaper than expected as well, and if not, we have other guys to talk about. So that's why we're throwing a lot of players at you. George Kittle, again, not a young buck, 31.5 years old right now, tight end 6 in the rankings. He might be a little bit more expensive. He's harder to give up, especially if you start talking tight end premium, start talking other formats, start talking about how deep your league is. But you know your league, you do what you need to do. 15.8 points per game, multiple tight end 1 weeks. Tight end 1 weeks don't really matter. It's double-digit weeks for me, especially past 12 points per game. We're steady there. We're steady there. I think a back-end first-round pick is going to be hard to do. But he's there when it comes to calculator value, when it comes to ADP value, something to look at. If you're on the clock and if you're looking to make a move, and maybe you need to be more creative than that, but that's there. But Alvin Kamara is pretty fluid. He's pretty fluid in the market. He's pretty liquid. Saints might draft another running back, but there's also rumors they might draft Shedeur with that first-round pick. If that happens, maybe round 2, 3, that could be an impact. But they've drafted third-round running backs before, and he silenced them. And he averaged 19 points per game last year and getting a ton of opportunities, especially in the passing game. And he's always going to be cheap. He's going to be cheap in redraft when you only need him for 1 season. He was cheap last year. It'll be the same price this year. Alvin Kamara is always that reliable, cheap asset. Until he's not. We're almost 30 years old. Until he's not. But if you're looking for cheap production, and if you want out of your pick, here you go. If you're looking to have a chip to trade up with, here you go. Joe Mixon. I don't see him being very liquid. When I mean by liquid, sellable on the market, But in that range, when you're talking calculator, maybe a little bit more. Like, I'm just not going to give him away unless there's something there for me. But again, something to think about. 17.2 points per game. We're getting opportunities. 28.7 years old. We're not going to be with the Texans forever. We're not going to be in the league forever. This is for a short time, not for a long time. If I'm middle of the road and I'm looking to move up, maybe this is the player I'm using this to get up there. Maybe I'm doing that. Maybe I use him to get that early second round pick, late first round pick if a player falls. Maybe I'm doing that. Maybe I just want outs. Maybe I just want outs. And maybe, like, there's a running back there that the market likes that you hate. I'm not going to name names because I don't want that debate. But maybe you go Joe Mixon instead. Maybe you can make it happen. Not in my league, pal, says somebody else out there. But we know what we're talking about. David Montgomery, another option. Again, option after option after option. Idea after idea after idea. Another way to get production on the cheap. If you hate what's on the board. If you want to pivot out. He's going to be cheap. You can funnel one of those picks. Something falls that way you don't like. You can take advantage of that. 16 points per game last year. 27.8 years old. For a contending team, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe he's your RB3. Maybe you want to trade up in your draft and you have David Montgomery. You use him plus your pick and you get up a few spots. Maybe that's an idea for you. That player still gets a good rookie and they're going to get David Montgomery on top of that and you get the rookie you want. Maybe that happens. I'm talking both ways. I'm not saying to sell these players or buy these players. I'm just trying to help you out with ideas because you're going to be on the clock and you're like, shit, I don't want this to happen. What the fuck am I going to do now? Look, here's some players. Fiddle around, kick the tires, see what happens. Chris Godwin. 29 years old, back with the Bucks here. 19.7 points per game, lower 8 dot, but we were racking up targets. But still, Chris Godwin, steady Eddie. Wide receiver 33. I do not expect him to be liquid on the market. If I have Chris Godwin, it's for a reason. I'm trying to win games. So maybe not, but still something to shoot your shot on. If you're in drafts, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 201, 202, whatever it is, I don't even care. And you don't like what's on the board, go get your dude then. Go get your dude. But what if I'm rebuilding? Late first, mid second, early second, whatever it is. What about Trey Benson last year? He was drafted in the third round. Odds are, Cardinals may not be drafting a running back of consequence. 4.39 speed at good size. James Conner, is he going to go another full season without barely getting injured? Is that going to happen? What if we gain more confidence in training camp? We gain more value for the team. We start getting more touches. Maybe we get our moment. We're right now RB29. That's a position where you can strike. That's a rebuilding piece. Am I going to be liquid with him on the market? Not with a young running back, but maybe if there's a young running back similar that I like better, and you don't like him and you're trying to trade back or whatever, there you go. Jalen McMillan. Wide receiver 45. I do not understand why. I don't understand why. Well, Godwin's back, so competition, but still a young asset here on the offense that was getting a lot of love going into the season, had a strong end to his rookie campaign. Maybe you can catch him on the cheap, getting a young wide receiver to add to your team, especially if you don't like this wide receiver class. Maybe you could do that. Or maybe you can use him mid-second, whatever, to move up some spots to get something you want. Maybe you can do that. Maybe not. Josh Downs, though. This is a quiet hitter. He has an injury history dating back to his collegiate career, but still, when he's on the field, he's money. Depending on quarterback play and what's going on with the offense, but still money. He can get you some production. He's a guy that you can get at a discount. Josh Downs is a player that you can target with some of those picks. Something to look at. Jalen Waddle. We're not getting any younger, but we're still 26. The market is kind of sour on him. More of a late first acquisition than it is a mid-second. Not going to be super liquid on the market. But if there's a hot name that you don't like, maybe you can make that happen. Again, I'm throwing ideas. Chris Olave is another one. More of a late first, 108, 19, 10, 11, 12, whatever type of deal you're trying to strike. But if you don't like what's there, you got to have a strategy, a pocket of players to chase and picks and whatever. I'm throwing that your way. Wide receiver 26 in the market. A guy that's kind of down right now in the value, especially considering what happened last year. A lot of that's out of his control. Quarterback, is very ambiguous right now due to what we're hearing about Carr, Shedeur Sanders. Maybe you could strike here. Get yourself a good young wide receiver that's going to be in the league for a long time. Now we're looking at early, mid-ish, second-round picks, players for competing teams. Maybe even throwing back in seconds. Maybe even throwing that in. But guys who are a little bit cheaper here that can help you compete now. James Conner. The market's always going to be cheap on him, but he's never, ever going to be super fluid. He's never, ever going to be super liquid on the market. Almost 30 years old, 30-year-old running backs, they're always cheap. However, not always liquid. I don't expect him to go easy. But maybe if the right guy's on the board, maybe, and if it's not your guy and you want production now, this could be it for you. This could be it. Could be. He's getting touches. As long as he's healthy, he is going to be it. If he's not healthy, if Father Time says, hey, it's my time to start ticking, maybe not. But there you go. But what about Juwan Jennings? Because he was racking up a little bit of production last year. He's super cheap. More of like that mid to late second round pick area value here. But again, a lot of you guys don't like the wide receiver class. Once we get to the middle of the second round, that running back class is going to start zapping up to where we're taking flyers and hoping to the fantasy gods for. And maybe you don't like the players there. And maybe you want something for the now. And the 49ers are very ambiguous. And that could be good, that could be bad. But then there's another option for you, Mark Andrews. Now, think about Mark Andrews the first few weeks of the season versus his actual production throughout the whole season. And you might be able to catch him at a decent price tag. Maybe not. Maybe more back in first. Maybe more middle of the second. But he's going to be all over the road for you guys. Almost 30 years old. So he's here for a short time, not a long time. And if the right prospect's there, maybe you can strike. Maybe. I'm not going to say he's going to be liquid either at that price point. And maybe it has to be more. But I'm throwing that at you for another basket in your player pool. Courtland Sutton here. Cheap player that can definitely get you production. And he's been healthy as of late. Almost 30 years old. Deep threat dandy. Short time, not a long time. Probably got another year if you're lucky, some more. But we're getting targets. We're getting air yards on the weekly. Bo Nix targets him. And if you're looking for a cheap player to help your wide receiver depth chart for 2025, while you're on the clock looking at players you don't like, here's another option for you to kick the tires with. David Njoku here. 13.5 points per game. And he was in and out of the lineup last year. Tight end 12 in the rankings versus the production that you saw from last year. Quarterback play is going to be a mystery with the Browns. The Browns are always going to be a mystery. The quarterback play has been a mystery my entire life. And I don't see that ever changing until I'm in the grave. That being said, David Njoku here. Probably going to be cheaper than expected. But what if I'm rebuilding? Mid-ish second, early second, late first on some of these guys. Not my league pals, some of these guys. Rebuilding players. Braylon Allen. We got a deep running back class. This is going to push down some of these running backs. Going to make them a little bit more fluid. You guys see the market jumping the shark weeks 2, 3, 4 when he was getting touches. People love this guy. And he's a good running back to have on the back end of your depth chart that you can get on the cheap. 21 years old. He's younger than a lot of these rookies. You can consider this as rookie year B or something like that. Rookie year 2 or whatever, considering how young he is. Good size to him. The Jets are very ambiguous at the running back position year in, year out. We do not know what they're going to do with Breece Hall for the long term. But Braylon Allen here is going to be on the team for the long term as well. And we're just getting started in year 2. Xavier Leggett—it's got speed. Now he's going to be more fluid and more cheaper on the market. Wide receiver 51. And if you do not like what's on the clock, what you're looking at here, maybe you go his way. You get a former first-round wide receiver with some upside and an offense that can get in some barn burners that we saw last year. Look for that to be more of the norm versus what we saw in the start of the season. Wide receiver 51, you might see him have some boom weeks and have some down weeks, maybe more of a volatile play. But again, it's cheap. Isaac Garando, RB45 in the rankings. Cheap young running back prospect. Nobody's trusting the 49ers with anything right now, and nobody should. But we know Garando's fast. He's got that home run speed. He's a home run hitter, and maybe you want that. on the back end of your depth chart, middle of your depth chart, wherever your depth chart's at. Maybe you just need a running back for the now. You do not like what's on the clock, and you'd rather just get him because you know where he's at on the team, and you know what's going to happen when he has the ball in his hands. There you go. There's another option. But what if I'm competing and I want to go even cheaper? I'm down the board a little bit more. Let's take a look at some other options here. Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, I think he's a little bit higher, so maybe a not in my league type pal. I'll understand that. But still, looking at age, 28 years old. Back in the season, we've seen a trend with rankings with the last few weeks of every season where it just impacts it, where gamers forget the start of the season. You see that ADP, keep trade cut, calculators. Maybe that's something you can take advantage of. Or getting a new quarterback, or getting a rookie. Maybe they don't like that. That's something you look at to move off of. Ramondre Stevenson. Now I'm mentioning players. That doesn't mean I advocate for them. Half these players I like, half of them I'm like, Some of them I don't like. But again, you got to do what you got to do with the value that you got. Ramondre Stevenson here is a cheap acquisition who's going to get touches. He's got a contract with the Patriots that they're going to use him for at least 2025, maybe a little bit longer. Big running back. I look for this team to bring in a running back or two in this draft. Bring in some competition. There was drama at the running back position last year, but he's able to bring you some RB1 weeks. He showed that last year, some RB2 production. And the market sentiment on him is not very strong. Same with Christian Kirk, but we're on the Texans. Tank Dell's been banged up, of course. Banged up's pretty light. It's a little bit more than that, but still, wide receiver 65, steady hands. I don't expect him to be a wide receiver 1 or anything like that, or an asset that goes boom. But a guy that can be steady week to week in your lineup, get you about 9, 10, 11 points per game, maybe even a 12 spot. A couple wide receiver 1 weeks here and there with this team. Or maybe just steady production. Borderline wide receiver 3-2 production week in and week out. As he's getting volume in this offense. As there is some ambiguity in this offense. Maybe you get that even. With the shorter targets that he's probably going to command. Christian Kirk. That's a hell of a value that you may want to pivot to. Evan Ingram. We're going with Bo Nix. We had a good run a couple years ago. Off and on last year with some injuries. 10.2 points per game. We can hit double digits. Bo Nix is a good quarterback for him. 7.1 targets per game last year. He can rack up targets. I look for this to be a cheap ad. Maybe more of a mid-second, early second type of deal. Because I'm not going to just give him away. And that's the same thing with any veteran. But still, you want something to shoot your shot for. But what about Jonnu Smith? He's always a tight end. That's just hovering too low versus the production or potential upside. Tight end 18, 13.2 points per game, racking up targets. A name that gets overlooked, but we were getting targets on the Dolphins. What about this? What about this? This is just another option here. But what if I'm rebuilding? What if I'm rebuilding? Here you go. Tank Dell coming back from an injury. Cheapest point right now. Maybe you can catch him at a discount, maybe even a steeper discount than what we're thinking of, especially when FOMO hits, when people are on the clock. Not right now when you're just steady, calm, chill, collected. Just got out of Burger King saying, not in my league, pal, while you're jiggling that double chin, trying to wondering what I'm talking about. But Tank Dell, maybe. Well, what about Blake Corum, though? Drafted in round 3. Didn't get hardly any touches last year. Wasn't super efficient number-wise with those touches. However, what if something happens to Kyron Williams? But we're not trying to sell. It's a cheap running back with draft capital behind him going into year 2 in an offense that can move the football here that you can catch at a good discount when you don't like what's on the clock. You don't like what's staring at you in the face. Jalen Wright, same thing. They added Alexander Madison this offseason. A grinder, a steady guy. Wright's a home run hitter. We got 4.3 speed. Maybe that's your avenue. Maybe that's the player you like. Maybe that's the 4th round running back you want instead of the 4th round running backs from this year's class. Maybe not. Maybe you don't like those wide receivers, but there's an option. Brenton Strange, a young tight end prospect. There's a chance this team goes tight end in the draft, but you'll know by the time you're in the middle of the 2nd round, that tight end's probably already off the board. That being said, tight end 20 right now. Keep trade cut. In the rankings, ADP, very similar. You're looking at a guy getting 5.5 points per game. 4 tight end 1 weeks, 2 tight end 2 weeks on the season. Can get you some targets in line to be the starter as of right now. Ben Sinnott. People forget, man. But Ben Sinnott, though. Ben Sennett, though, is a prospect everybody was talking about going into 2024. Zach Ertz emerged. Maybe emerges again. This is more of a long term. That's what tight end is. Still a talent on an offense that we like. And now you can catch him year 2 on the cheap. And I say this all the time. I look at those tight ends and I just mark them off. And I just wait for this moment and I catch them on the cheap the next year or the year after that. And that's when I strike. When they're elevated up in rookie drafts, just watch those tight ends the next year and buy them then. This is a tight end where I'll probably end up getting Ben Sennett in a few leagues. That could potentially happen for me. Jonathan Brooks. The market's tanking. You might catch him cheaper. The Panthers might even draft another running back in the later rounds. That could potentially happen. That could happen with any team this year. The running back position is so deep with talent. Jonathan Brooks. Maybe year 3, year 4, he starts coming on a little bit. Maybe he gets you some production. He's going to be on the pup this year. He's not going to cost you a roster spot in a lot of your leagues. You can just put him right there. Maybe he's on IR most of the year. You can put him right there. The Rico Dowdle signing is a good look for that. I could be wrong. I'm always wrong. I'm always right. That's how it is with this game. Jonathan Brooks is an option for a player on the cheap. Second round draft capital. Does have some pop in the step. Maybe 2026 for you, 2027. But if you don't like what's there, round 3-ish, somewhere around there, late second, depending on what's there, depending on what got zapped off the board, depending on your league, you'll know when to make the move. You'll know what to do. But those are some plays we're looking at right now. Because some of these players, you're not going to want. Some of these players aren't possible. Not in my league, pal, as I made fun of that commenter that is probably going to comment. So I'm ahead of that B-Rabbit style. But still, ideas, being creative, having a basket of players for every pick in your draft to pivot to kick the tires with, to see what you can do. Maybe just have a plan of attack. Maybe those last 3 sentences I just said is the most value in this video. Have a plan of attack, basket of players for each pick, an idea of what you want to do. I helped you with that basket. I got a few apples in there for you. You put in a few more, then now you're good to go. Now you're good to do some things in your rookie draft. And the draft's here soon. Your rookie drafts are going to be right after that. And we're here every day. During the draft, after every pick that matters for Dynasty, I jump on here. I drop a reaction video. Rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I sit here all day. I watch the picks happen. Live, quick reaction. That way you have something to work off of if your rookie drafts start day 1 of the draft, because some of you guys have that. Let me know what you think, though, in the comments below. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out. Well, thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.